It's easy for us to conclude since life is in suspense, so we will lose focus and motivation.
我哋好容易係結論到話，因為我哋生命係站喺呢個暫停嘅呢個狀態嘅裏邊，好容易會失去咗我哋目標同埋我哋嘅動力。
So when we come out of it, it's hard to go back on track.
咁當我從呢個暫停嘅狀況出嚟嘅時候，就好難上返呢個軌道。
Today I would like to explain to you, it doesn't need to be like that.
咁我今日就同你解釋一下，呢個情況唔係一定係需要咁樣。
We don't want to come out of the pandemic flat, rusty, and lack of motivation.
咁我哋唔希望當我哋從呢個大流行瘟疫裏面出嚟嘅時候，變咗冇精打采，係冇呢個活力，冇呢個生氣。
We want our life to be fresh, reinvigorated, motivated.
我哋希望我哋生命係精力充沛，係精神煥發嘅。
We want to be ready to take on any challenge in life.
我哋希望係準備好去接受生命任何嘅挑戰。
So let us explore what can we do to strive for the best outcome after this long isolation.
咁讓我哋去探索一下喺呢個長期嘅隔離完咗之後，有咩我哋可以努力做啲乜嘢去令到我哋生命裏邊演得更加好。
I want to help you to prepare yourself to tackle the toughest challenge in your life.
我希望讓大家可以準備好，可以去接受呢個生命中最大嘅挑戰。
Or tackle those things you have failed to do before.
或者去做一啲我以前係失敗嘅事情。
So the title of this sermon is Empowerment Through Starvation.
咁今日我哋呢個嘅主題就話從抑鬱中激發出嘅潛能。
Today I would like to talk about Moses.
今日我希望講到摩西
and the positive outcome of his long isolation in the wilderness for 40 years.
咁喺佢呢個嘅野外40年嘅裏邊，呢個隔離裏面所出嚟呢個正面嘅演變。
And the Bible used the word he was in the backside of the desert. That means like in the desert is worse, is bad. In the backside of the desert is even worse. It's tucked away from everybody.
咁喺聖經裏邊咧，就係英文係講到佢話喺呢個沙漠嘅裏邊，咁但係咧就係講到話呢個係呢個沙漠嘅野外，甚至係呢個沙漠裏邊嘅野外嘅地方。
And so I want you to gain a new perspective about Moses during these 40 years.
咁我希望你可以係從一個新嘅角度睇一睇摩西呢40年裏邊嘅事情。
You'll hear something that you have probably never heard before about Moses.
咁或者你可以聽到今日會聽到一啲你從未聽到人哋講到摩西嘅。
I would like you to apply this dynamic into your own life during this isolation.
我希望喺呢個嘅隔離嘅期間裏邊，你係將呢個動力係應用喺你自己身嘅上邊。
I want you to turn this isolation into a powerful dynamic to shape your future.
咁希望係將呢個動力咧係變為決定你將來嘅一個嘅時機。
What has happened to Moses can happen to us too.
喺摩西身上所發生嘅事情，同樣可以喺我哋身上發生。
Let us try to understand what has happened to him during these 40 years of isolation.
咁希望睇一睇喺40年呢個隔離嘅裏邊，佢生命裏邊發生咗咩嘅事情。
I would like to analyze with you what happened before the 40 years, and then after the 40 years, and then I will explain to you what happened during the 40 years.
咁希望同你分析一下喺呢40年之前嘅事情，同埋40年之後嘅事情，再之後先再講翻嗰啲40年之間發生咗咩事。
So the first one is before the 40 years, and I'm going to say something that you all know.
咁首先係講到你40年前，呢40年之前係一啲講一啲你或者已經知道嘅事情。
According to the movie Prince of Egypt, Moses was full of life.
咁喺呢個埃及王子呢個嘅電影裏邊就講到話，呢個摩西係充滿咗呢個生命。
He was witty, fun-loving, much smarter than the crown prince Ramsey.
佢係風趣愛玩，係同比呢個嘅拉美西斯係更加有呢個智慧。
And according to Stephen in Acts chapter 7, verse 22, Moses was educated, powerful in speech, and knowledgeable.
咁係史提反喺呢個《使徒行傳》第7章佢裏邊係講到話，摩西係一個説話行事都有能力嘅，同埋有知識嘅人。
But more important, he did not let all his talent go into waste because he was ambitious.
咁係更加重要嘅話，佢係冇白費咗佢呢個嘅才幹，因為佢真係雄心勃勃。
He wanted to deliver his kinsmen out of Egypt.
佢希望係將佢嘅國人係救離呢個埃及。
Acts chapter 7, verse 35 talks about he positioned himself to be a judge and a ruler.
咁喺呢個《使徒行傳》第7章第35節裏邊就講到話，佢希望自己係成為佢哋嘅首領，佢哋嘅審判官。
How people perceive him when they saw him.
咁當人睇到佢嘅時候，亦都係同樣感覺佢係咁樣嘅人。
So I do believe he was with this same aspiration. 40 years later, he went back to deliver Israel.
亦都同樣佢40年之後，就因為佢呢個心志嘅緣故，係翻去埃及係救佢嘅國人。
Now during that time, before the 40 years, he was vicious.
咁喺呢40年之前呢，佢係一個非常之兇狠嘅人。
And there was fire within him, which is easily stoked.
喺佢嘅入邊係有一團火，好容易係被煽起出嚟。
It's like a volcano, very easy to blow up its top anytime when it's agitated.
係當佢激動嘅時候，就好容易好似火山咁樣爆發。
He has no problem to kill an Egyptian to save a Jewish person.
去殺害一個嘅埃及人去救一個以色列人，對佢嚟講係冇問題嘅。
You simply don't kill someone if you don't have that kind of fire within you.
咁如果你係冇呢個團火嘅話，你唔會係出去好咁簡單咁殺咗個人。
He wanted to leave a strong impression among his kinsmen that he is there for them to protect them, to be the big brother.
佢希望俾佢國人見有呢個印象，就話佢係會做任何事情去保護佢哋，係做佢哋嘅大哥哥。
He was brave too.
佢亦都係非常之有呢個勇氣。
Do you know he did not run away after he killed someone?
咁佢殺咗人之後，佢係冇去逃走。
He behaved as business as usual. Nothing has happened.
佢嘅就好似當乜嘢事都冇發生過一樣。
But only during the next day, he tried to settle the dispute between two Jewish persons.
但係當佢第二日希望去和解一啲猶太人佢哋爭執嘅時候，
The aggressor told him, "Are you going to kill me the same way you killed the Egyptian yesterday?"
咁當時呢個猶太人就同佢講：你係咪想殺咗我，好似你殺呢個埃及人一樣呢？
Well, according to Stephen in Acts chapter 7, verse 35, it is interpreted as their rejection of his leadership.
咁司提反喺《使徒行傳》第7章第35節就話到呢句説話就代表咗摩西係被佢嘅國人係棄絕咗。
Okay. So then he suddenly realized the whole thing must have been made known to Pharaoh.
咁突然之間佢就知道咗，發覺咧呢件事情已經係被呢個嘅法老知道啦。
And Pharaoh wanted to kill him, so he fled.
咁但法老就想殺佢，咁因為緣故咧，佢就係逃走。
He became a shepherd, someone whom the Egyptians despised.
佢成為咗一個牧羊人，一啲埃及人所憎惡嘅人。
And I believe he probably feel very low about himself.
我亦都相信當時佢對自己嘅亦都睇自己非常之係低
At
微。
that time, he was sidelined in the wilderness for 40 years.
咁當時佢就喺呢個嘅曠野40年。
Like, believe me, when you are about 40 years old, and I guess some of you are at your 40s, you are at your prime.
佢當時係40歲嘅，我相信大家喺呢40歲嘅時候應該係成年嘅時候。
And he was being snuffed out during this prime.
而喺佢呢個成年嘅時間嘅裏邊咧，佢係被扼殺咗。
Reduced to a nobody in even his own eyes.
佢淪落到成為一個寂寂無名人，甚至喺佢自己眼中都係咁。
Most of us look at him as if he is rotting away for 40 years.
咁好多時我哋睇到佢就喺佢40年裏邊咧，佢係日漸呢個嘅萎靡。
He lived a life, without any plan. He doesn't have to figure out anything. What he has to do is to count sheep.
佢喺個生命裏邊唔需要任何計劃，佢只需要做嘅咧就係話點數呢啲羊。
No need to have any ambition.
唔需要有任何嘅雄心壯志。
Well, so our 1 year of layoff is nothing in comparison with Moses.
所以我哋過去呢1年裏邊係呢個停止嘅狀態裏邊係同摩西嚟嘅比較晒係唔算得係乜嘢。
His life was in a suspense for 40 years, not 1 year like us.
佢嘅生命係停止咗40年，唔係好似我哋咁係1年。
That's before the 40 years. Now we talk about what happened after.
呢個就係40年之前，呢40年之前所發生嘅事。而家講翻40年之後啦。
Part of it is something you know, but another part may not.
咁有一部分你係已經知道，有一部分可能你未知道嘅。
Acts chapter 7 verse 35. God picked up his story when he appeared to him in a burning bush.
咁喺呢個嘅使徒行傳第7章35節裏邊咧，神係繼續佢嘅故事，就喺佢呢個焚燒嘅經歷嘅面前，對佢摩西顯現。
Let us see what happened to this man after 40 years. Now he's 80 years old.
咁我睇一睇40年之後呢個人，呢個已經80歲嘅人係有咩情況發生？
Most of us see him have gone downhill already.
咁大多數人都睇到佢已經係開始走咗下坡啦。
He has passed his prime.
佢已經係過咗佢呢個嘅成年。
He is now an old man.
佢而家已經係一個老人。
Older than Bernie Sanders.
係比Bernie Sanders 係更加老。
He was a mighty man once upon a time, but now he's reduced to an old man.
佢曾經係一個大能嘅人。但係佢能力才幹嘅人，但係而家佢只不過係老人家。
He is a shadow of himself.
佢已經冇咗佢以前嘅影子。
And not only that, the isolation probably have hit him so hard that he has lost all his confidence.
因為佢呢個隔離嘅緣故，係令到佢甚至係喪失咗所有嘅雄心壯志。
Almost all of us, including preachers, conclude that he has made lame excuse not to do what God have assigned him to do.
咁大多數人甚至係一啲解經家都認為佢係有一啲講出一啲冇說服力嘅藉口去唔遵從神嘅話，要佢翻到去呢個。
His ego was deflated so much that he has no more ambition.
佢嘅自尊係受損到一個程度，佢已經係冇晒呢啲壯志。
He is so bad that he told God, "Well, don't send me. Send my older brother. He may be even better than me, you know."
咁佢甚至同神講話：你派我哥哥去咧，佢可能比我更加適合。
Aaron is 83 years old at that time.
但係亞倫當時已經係83歲啦。
Worse than Moses.
仲老過係摩西。
But yet Moses think that his brother is better.
但係仍然呢個摩西以為佢嘅哥哥係更加適合。
So to all of us, we say, what do you expect from an old man?
對我哋嚟講就係話，你可以預期呢個老人家可以做到乜嘢咧
For someone who has been rotting away for 40 years, what do you expect from him? There's nothing left.
咁佢呢個人已經係消磨咗40年咁耐啦，咁究竟佢入邊仲有咩可以做嘅事情咧
Now, if this is what you see in Moses, you probably look at yourself the same way.
如果你係咁樣睇摩西嘅話咧，同樣你都係咁樣睇你自己。
The long layoff from the COVID reduce you to something a little bit less than you came into COVID before.
咁因為呢個嘅大流行瘟疫嘅緣故，係令到你變得係比以前係更加差。
So ask yourself, what do you expect to see in yourself after you thaw out from this deep freeze?
咁係當你 你應該問一問自己，當你從呢一個嘅冷藏裏邊解凍之後，你係預期見自己係點樣呢？
Has everything hang loose and you become fat and clumsy?
咁係咪一切你係咪變肥咗，變咗論盡咗咧？
Too much weight that you can hardly even run or walk?
咁你係肥腫到你係根本係連行或者走或者行都唔得。
Are you so comfortable now that you don't have any more ambition or motivation or ego to go forward?
咁你係咪舒適呢個程度就係話你唔需要有呢個雄心，唔需要有壯志係繼續去前行呢？
But it doesn't have to be like that.
但係唔需要係咁樣嘅。
I have a good news for you today.
今日我有一個好嘅信息俾你。
If you understand what happened to Moses during this time, then you rethink about your own isolation.
咁如果你明白到喺摩西身上發生嘅事情，你就會係對自己嘅情況有新嘅諗法。
Whatever we said about Moses during these 40 years is not what God saw in him.
咁我哋所呢40年裏邊所發生喺摩西身上嘅，唔係神所見到嘅。
We have made a wrong conclusion about Moses because we look at him from a wrong perspective.
我哋係對摩西嘅生命作出咗呢個錯誤嘅結論，因為我哋從有一個錯嘅觀點去睇佢。
We only focus on the burning bush encounter with God.
我哋只不過係專注喺佢同神呢個會晤嘅喺呢個嘅荊棘會晤嘅時刻。
When you stand before God Almighty,
當佢站喺呢個大能嘅神嘅面前嘅時候，
even the strongest of us become weak.
就算係我哋當中最剛強嗰啲都會成為軟弱。
The wisest of us become foolish.
最智慧嗰啲都成為呢個愚鈍嘅人。
We become weak, frail, and powerless when we stand before God.
當我哋站喺神嘅面前嘅時候，我哋變為呢個軟弱係脆弱嘅。
So this is how Moses see himself before God.
咁摩西亦都喺神嘅面前係咁樣睇自己。
But this is not what God see in him.
但係神見到嘅唔係咁樣。
We must examine Moses away from this burning bush experience.
咁我哋需要係將摩西從呢個焚燒嘅荊棘呢個場面係挪開。
It's more accurate to look at Moses through the eyes of his contemporaries when he reemerged before them.
唔明你講乜
We must look at Moses through the eyes of his contemporaries, like Pharaoh and Aaron and all the Jewish people when he reemerged from coming back from the wilderness.
而我哋需要係從佢當時嘅人嘅眼中點樣睇摩西，當佢係翻返去埃及嘅時候。
You may say, "Oh, I know."
你或者會
He
講話我知道。
appeared to be a frail old man walking with the help of a cane.
人哋見到只不過係個老人家揸住拐杖行嘅老人家。
Right? He came back with a cane, with a rod.
佢記得佢翻返埃及嘅時候，佢係揸住一支嘅杖。
And so when he ran away, he did not need that 40 years before.
40年前佢離開嘅時候係唔需要呢個拐杖。
So this is how we perceive him.
咁啲人就係咁樣睇佢。
But that's not how the rest of people in his time see him.
但係喺佢當時嘅人嘅眼中所見到嘅唔係咁樣嘅。
They saw a man with great tenacity,
佢見到一個非常之一個堅韌嘅人，
full of confidence, walking with the staff of God in his hands, ready to perform miracles.
揸住神嘅呢個俾佢嘅杖，滿有自信，準備去行呢個神蹟。
And he is a changed man.
佢係一個已經係改變咗嘅人。
Unlike 40 years ago, he was full of youthful idealism and enthusiasm.
唔好似40年前佢係滿有呢個年輕時嘅理想主義同埋熱情。
Somehow irrational and rash and explosive.
佢係甚至係輕率同埋 暴躁。
ready to kill someone and make himself a murderer and guilty by capital punishment.
咁就係殺咗人，成為令到自己變咗呢一個嘅逃犯。
He wasn't ready to lead at that time.
佢當時係未準備好去做呢個領袖。
But now he's steady, he's reliable, and he's seasoned and he's strong.
但係而家佢係沉着可靠，同埋有呢個豐富嘅經驗嘅人。
They are seeing someone at the beginning of his most fruitful years of his life.
佢係見到一個人係開始呢個成功嘅呢個嘅路途。
Moses began to live at the age of 80.
喺80歲嘅時候，摩西先開始正式嘅生活。
And suddenly he's capable of doing everything he has aspired to do.
佢突然間可以能夠做到佢夢想裏邊所做嘅事情。
And through the power of God, he also brought a lot of devastation in Egypt.
佢藉着神嘅大能，亦都係將呢個毀滅係帶到俾埃及。
Several months ago, I explained to you that he had destroyed the economy of Egypt.
幾個月前係解釋到話佢係點樣將埃及呢個經濟係完全係敗壞。
Single-handedly with the help of God.
藉着神嘅大能。
And the fishery, the crops, and the economy were all destroyed by the blood, by the locusts, by the flies, and by the hailstorm.
咁樣佢所有一切嘅呢啲嘅農作漁業都係藉着呢啲嘅奇蹟係完全係破壞晒。
At the end, they were so afraid of him. The Egyptians were so afraid of him to the point that they are willing to give up all the treasure in the household in order to bribe them, to urge them to leave Egypt.
最後埃及人驚到一個地步，話係甚至係犧牲自己所有嘅財產，就希望過呢啲摩西早啲係離去。
They were so afraid of Moses, an 80-year-old Moses, that if he were to stay a little bit longer, Egypt will have reduced to nothingness.
佢係好驚呢個80歲嘅摩西，如果佢逗留耐啲嘅時候，就會係將呢個埃及係完全係毀滅。
So all the crops, all the economy was destroyed, and all the saving that they have were given to the Jewish people.
所有嘅經濟、所有嘅農作物都被破壞晒，而佢呢啲埃及人所有嘅積蓄，亦都係因為咁緣故係冇晒。
They have nothing left.
已經係乜嘢都冇啦。
This is how powerful Moses was after 80 years.
咁喺40年之後，摩西就成為咁有呢個嘅大能嘅人。
And Pharaoh wanted to chase everything back, so he sent his elite troop to pursue them.
咁當時法老希望係將呢嘢搶翻翻嚟，就係派兵去追佢哋。
But he drowned them at the Red Sea.
但喺紅海裏邊，呢啲軍隊係被摩西係浸死咗。
So Egypt become powerless too afterwards.
咁之後係呢個埃及就係變為一個係冇勢力冇權力嘅國家。
So was Moses rotting away in the 40 years of isolation?
咁呢個嘅40年裏邊，摩西係咪真係被腐化咗咧？
Far from it.
係完全相反。
What I want to explain to you that he was preserved for this time.
我想解釋到話佢係被保留，係保存到呢個時間嘅裏邊。
Point number 3.
第3點
What happened during this time?
咁究竟40年之間發生咗咩事咧？
I would like to call it Welcome to God's Training Camp.
咁想講就話係歡迎你嚟到神呢個嘅訓練營。
The Bible did not say much about this period of time.
喺聖經裏邊冇講到太多關於呢段時間嘅事情。
But it's not hard to figure that out if you have some imagination.
如果你係有一啲想像力嘅話咧，就亦都好容易可以諗到出嚟。
Let me ask you some questions.
或者先問一問呢啲問題。
For an ambitious person like Moses, what have gone through his mind when he was hiding at the backside of the desert?
咁作為摩西一個咁有雄心嘅人，當佢喺呢個沙漠野外嘅地方裏邊，佢究竟諗緊乜嘢呢？
Has he stopped thinking about his own people and the sufferings in Egypt?
佢係咪停止咗思想佢哋各人喺呢個埃及所受嘅苦呢？
Did he really kill his ego and ambition, or has he increased the ambition?
咁係將佢嘅呢個嘅自尊同埋呢個嘅雄心係扼殺咗啊？定係讓佢嘅雄心係更加增加呢？
Is there any craving for him to return to Egypt and kick the can again?
佢係有一個渴望，希望再翻到去埃及係再做一次咧，再嘗試一次咧。
Or another question I would like to ask you is that does denial take away a strong craving or increase it?
咁究竟上另一個問題就想問一問就話，如果係被拒絕嘅話，咁係就會將你呢一個渴望係消減啊，或者係增強咧？
Like say for instance, if you have a strong craving for coffee or for dim sum, so much that you need to go to Tim Horton or Red Ruby or Kim Fong for your daily fix.
咁係若然你係對呢個咖啡啊，或者係對呢個點心係有一個渴望嘅話，咁你每日都需要去買咖啡或者係買點心食嘅。
And after the quarantine for over a year,
咁係當你隔離咗1年之後。
What happened to you when you come out from the quarantine?
咁係你喺呢個嘅隔離解禁咗之後，喺你身上會發生咩事情咧
Will you have no more interest of the coffee or dim sum?
你係咪再對呢啲咖啡同埋呢啲點心冇興趣咧？
I think you know the answer.
我相信你已經知道答案。
You say, no way. The first thing I want to do is go to Tim Horton. The first thing I want to do is to go to Red Ruby or to Kim Fong to have to eat to drink to my delight.
咁當然唔係啦，我相信我第一件事要做嘅事情就話去買咖啡或者去食點心。
So the starvation, the denial does not kill your ambition, but it increases it.
咁呢一個嘅拒絕，呢個嘅飢餓唔會係將你呢個渴望係消減，反而係令佢增強。
Let me say this: starvation can be a strong motivating factor for our ambitions.
咁可以咁樣講話，呢一個飢可以令到我哋呢個嘅飢渴嘅係更加大嘅，有更加大嘅動力。
This applies to everything that you are passionate about.
呢一啲可以應用喺你所有你覺得有呢個嘅熱情嘅地方。
If you want to do something and have a strong urgency, starve yourself for a while.
如果你係想做一啲嘅事情嘅話，咁你可以拒絕自己係讓自己飢餓一段嘅時間。
Deny yourself a little bit the pleasure of doing that for a while, and then when you come out of it, you feel a stronger urge.
咁係拒絕自己，唔俾自己去做一啲你想做嘅事情，係讓自己飢渴一段嘅時間。當你係重新做嘅時候，你會更加有呢個動力。
When a coach bench a hockey player,
咁當一個教練係罰一個球員坐冷板凳嘅時候，
it pits him off so much that he really want to get back and prove everybody wrong.
咁呢個球員就係會被激嬲，令到佢出翻嚟嘅時候係希望係證實其他人所有人都係錯嘅。
Pastor Joel told me this.
咁做牧師同我咁講話。
He told me when he was working in his Vietnamese church.
咁當佢喺呢個越南教會工作嘅時候
，many of the older members came from South Vietnam.
好多比較年長嘅會員都係從呢個越南嘅南邊嚟嘅。
Even after 40 years,
雖
they
然
are
已經
still talking. Yeah, go ahead.
雖然經咗40年咁耐，
They're still talking about going back to Vietnam and fight the communists and repel them back to back north and then take back the motherland.
佢仍然係講到話翻去越南裏邊係對抗呢啲嘅共產黨，希望將佢哋趕出佢哋嘅國土。
So you see, even after 40 years, the ambition did not die.
所以你睇到，雖然係經咗40年，佢呢個嘅雄心係仍然係冇。
Regardless of how unrealistic it is.
係冇磨滅到，雖然係唔符現，就算係唔符呢個現實都好。
The fire is still burning inside them.
呢個火仍然喺佢裏邊係燃燒緊。
Another friend told me, he goes to California once a while. He's also Vietnamese Chinese.
咁另一個朋友亦都係一個越南人嚟嘅，佢有時會去到呢個洛杉磯。
He said, like they every year that they have this army drill among the what they call the veteran who fled Vietnam. They have the drill and all that, the training and all that. They have the march and they want to be ready to go back.
咁每一年佢都係會一齊呢啲嘅軍人就會聚埋一齊，係有呢個嘅呢個軍事嘅練習，佢哋係準備好自己翻去係做呢個嘅呢個抗戰。
40 years later，
呢個係40年之後發生嘅。
The passion, the fire has not died in Moses.
喺摩西嘅裏邊，佢呢個火係仍然係冇被撲滅。
If a Vietnamese has said, I do believe the Jewish people have a stronger passion to go back to the homeland.
咁若然呢個越南人係咁樣，我相信呢啲猶太人佢哋嘅心希望還翻到去自己國都係更加嘅強烈。
History have shown that this is the craving for all Jewish people to return to Palestine.
咁係每一個嘅猶太人嘅心裏面嘅渴望就話係翻到去呢個巴勒斯坦裏邊。
So I want to point out to you,
我希望
Moses
指出
go ahead. Moses was living a very torturous emotion of wanting to go back to save the people, but he couldn't.
咁我想指出就話摩西佢係經歷緊一個好折磨、好痛，令佢好痛苦嘅感覺，就話佢想去翻去救佢嘅國人，但係佢唔能夠咁樣做。
Even though outside you look calm and nothing has happened, but inside him it's like a volcano being ready to explode, erupt.
咁雖然外表好似好平靜咁樣，但係佢內心裏邊好似個火山準備爆發一樣。
He wants to set his people free from tyranny and oppression.
佢希望係將佢嘅國人從呢一個嘅呢個嘅逼迫同埋呢個嘅呢個獨權裏邊係救出嚟。
A contemporary example is Nelson Mandela.
咁我哋其中一個例子就係呢個嘅 Mandela。
Nelson Mandela was in prison for 28 years.
係呢個近年呢個例子，佢係被囚禁咗28年。
Do you think he lost his ambition after imprisonment?
你覺得呢一個嘅囚禁係令佢嘅呢個嘅志向係失去咗咩？
Has he lost his feeling towards the suffering of his own people under the oppression of apartheid?
咁你覺得佢係失去咗對佢自己嘅人民因為呢個種族隔離所受嘅苦而係冇咗感覺咩？
Has this imprisonment killed his conviction to fight against discrimination and injustice?
咁樣佢會唔會因為咁佢被監禁嘅緣故，係令到佢對呢個嘅歧視同埋呢個不公平同佢對抗爭鬥呢個嘅意念係消失咗咩？
Or does it grow stronger and stronger?
定係反而係令到佢呢個信係更加嘅增強咗咧？
We all know in reality that the long layoff did not destroy him, but prepare him to be the president of South Africa.
而係真實嚟講，我哋知道喺呢個長期嘅呢個係停止嘅活動裏邊，係冇將佢係毀滅，反而係準備好佢係成為呢個南非嘅總統。
And that long layoff actually have shaped his life so that he knows what to do, he knows what not to do, and make him the most beloved human being in history.
而呢個囚禁嘅裏邊，亦都係可以形成到佢知道係應該做乜嘢，乜嘢係應該做，乜嘢係唔應該做嘅，咁令佢成為喺呢個歷史上係一個最受人愛戴嘅人。
Make no mistake about this. Our aspiration, our calling, and our craving do not die just because of this isolation.
你需要確定就係話，我哋嘅志向，我哋嘅呼召，我哋嘅呢個渴望，唔會係因為呢個隔離而係被磨滅。
To the contrary, starvation may actually increase our resolve to get back and get back onto the saddle once again.
但係我喺當中嘅呢個飢餓嘅時間個裏邊，係令到我哋呢個渴望係更加增強，同埋更加有決心係再一次係上翻呢個馬嘅上邊。
With the right attitude, this long layoff actually cultivate our deeper longing to pursue our goal in life.
咁若然我哋有一個正確嘅觀點、正確嘅態度嘅時候，呢一個長期嘅呢個嘅停止係反而係會栽培到我哋有更加大嘅或者更加深嘅呢個嘅渴求去追求我哋嘅目標。
I've left this church for 9 years between 2002 to 2010.
我有9年嘅時間裏邊係離開咗呢間教會。
It was my wilderness experience.
係從2002年至2010年裏邊，係呢一個係我哋我嘅自己嘅抗疫嘅經歷。
During this time, even though I helped out several churches,
雖然喺呢段時間裏邊，我係好忙咁樣幫緊其他嘅教會，
but emotionally it was very tough for me.
但係喺呢個嘅情緒嚟講，係對我係好困難嘅。
It's a time of setback.
係一個呢個嘅挫折嘅時間。
It was painful and torturous.
係充滿咗痛苦同埋苦惱嘅。
And the thing make it worse is because I moved back to Montreal.
令嘅情況更加困難就係話，我係搬翻嚟滿地可。
Closer to home and yet not home.
係更加近屋企，但係唔係翻返屋企。
And you need to understand the tension within my heart.
你需要明白到我心裏邊嘅呢個掙扎。
During this time, often, when I preach at the Chinese hospital,
咁好多時候我去到呢個華人中華醫院係講道嘅時候，
I couldn't even walk past the Montreal Chinese Pentecostal Church.
我會避免係經過呢個滿地可華人神召會。
It's just across the street.
雖然係只不過係隔一條街，只不過係對面。
I felt the heartache so strong that I couldn't even walk past the church.
我係感到好困難，我根本就唔可以係經過呢間教會。
There were times Linda asked me, "Can you buy something from Chinatown?" So I walked down VJ and avoid the church altogether.
咁有時係Linda 叫我去唐人街買一啲嘢，咁我就會行呢個嘅VJ 街去買嘢。
The heartache is almost like, parents who have lost custody battle for the children and walk past the house and knowing that they are all inside.
咁嘅情況就係好似一啲爭撫養權爭輸咗嘅父母，佢係經過佢以前嘅屋企，就知道佢兒女喺呢個屋企嘅裏邊。
You want to talk to the children, you want to see your children, you want to make sure they are doing well, you want to see them.
你希望係見佢哋同你講説話，係睇下佢哋情況好唔好。
You want to show them your love.
你希望係對佢哋表達你嘅愛，
But you cannot.
但係你唔能夠咁樣做。
Can you see how painful it is?
你可以見到係幾咁嘅痛苦。
The denial of Moses to do what he used to do is a torture.
對摩西嚟講，佢係唔能夠做佢心裏想做嘅，係一種嘅折磨嚟嘅。
It creates a stronger craving.
咁喺佢心裏邊係產生咗一個更加大嘅呢個渴求。
Before I left the church, I worked very hard to prepare the church expansion to build the second floor.
你知道喺我離開教會之前呢，我係好盡力咁樣係準備好呢個嘅擴堂嘅工作。
During these 9 years of absence,
喺呢9年裏邊，我唔喺呢個當中。
I have so many nightmares.
我有好多嘅，我發咗好多嘅噩夢。
I didn't even tell Linda about those.
我甚至冇對同阿 Linda 咁樣講。
In my dream, I visit the second floor space.
咁喺我嘅夢裏邊咧，我就去到呢個2樓。
It's either I am being denied in an entrance.
情況就係話，有人唔俾我入去。
Or after I went inside, I look at everything, it doesn't resemble what it's supposed to be.
又或者係我上到去係見到同我構思嘅情況完全唔一樣。
I became so sad.
我變得好悲哀。
I was disappointed.
同埋係失望。
I cried many times during the dream.
喺呢個夢裏邊好多時我哋喺度喊。
So that is the kind of like experience, the emotion when somebody is being denied.
咁當咧佢係被拒絕時候，佢就有呢一種嘅情緒。
I can imagine Moses, Nelson Mandela have the same kind of emotion.
我可以想象到摩西同埋曼德拉都有同樣咁樣情緒。
When the ambition is being choked off,
係當佢嘅呢個心智嘅志向係被扼殺嘅時候，
it makes them hunger for even more. That one day they may want to kick the can again.
咁令到佢呢個嘅渴望係更加嘅強烈，令佢係更加想係再一次嘗試一下。
So the starvation actually cultivates an intense hunger to get back into the groove.
咁樣呢一個嘅飢餓係令到就栽培到我呢個嘅渴求，令我係更加係想係回復我呢個最佳嘅狀態裏邊。
God did that purposely to Moses.
你需要知道神係有意係咁樣做。
By starving him what he wanted to do in order to increase his ambition.
係拒絕佢，讓佢係飢餓，更加係令佢呢個嘅呢個雄心係更加嘅強烈。
In order to train his will and also increase his resolve to deliver Israel out of bondage afterwards.
咁係幫助佢係訓練佢嘅意志，係更加有決心去救呢以色列人出呢個埃及。
Now you may object my explanation.
你或者係會反對我所呢個嘅解釋。
And you may question me, why did Moses decline God's commission to go back to deliver Israel? If he has a strong desire, why did he decline it?
咁你或者會問我，若然係咁樣嘅話，如果係真係有呢一個強烈嘅渴望，點解摩西係拒絕神係佢嘅指明呢？
Well, I want you to know this is not a proof. Is not cannot be used as a proof that Moses has lost his aspiration to save Israel.
但係呢一樣嘢唔可以證實摩西已經失去咗去救以色列嘅呢個嘅雄心。
Can you imagine? After Nelson Mandela was in prison for 20 years.
我想象一下，當曼德拉係被囚咁樣20年之後。
Like 8 years before he's being released. So he was in prison for 20 years, and you go to visit him and you tell him, well, I want you to come out now and become the president of South Africa.
就係佢被釋放之前8年，仍然喺監獄裏邊，你去探佢就話：我想你係被釋放嘅時候，係成為南非嘅總統。
I believe he probably will tell you, are you crazy? This is the craziest thing I have ever heard. You are out of your mind.
咁當時曼德拉可能會對你講就話：你呢個係一個非常之瘋狂嘅主意，你係咪已經神經錯亂咗呢？
Having an ambition is one thing, but seeing the reality makes a big difference.
咁你有呢個嘅志向係一回事，但係你要意識到。但係呢個真實亦係另一回事。
They are wise enough to know that the present condition is not favorable.
而佢呢啲人係有呢個智慧，係知道現時呢個情況係未係適合。
If he present himself going out, he probably will be being arrested again and being in prison for longer.
咁若然佢真話係跟從呢個主意去做嘅話，佢可能係會被囚禁得更加嘅耐。
And actually, around 1 year after I moved back to Montreal from Vancouver,
咁其實係我搬翻嚟滿地可一年之後搬翻嚟滿地可嘅時候，
I did receive an email from the church and the pulpit search committee, the pastor search committee of this church, asking me to submit my resume.
咁亦都係從教會嘅呢一個嘅揾牧師個小組裏邊係收到佢一封嘅電郵，就話叫我係將我嘅履歷係遞出去。
Like Moses, I declined.
就好似摩西咁樣，我係婉拒咗。
Not because I lost all my desire for the church.
唔係話我對呢個嘅教會嘅呢個渴求係冇咗，
But because everything did not line up.
因為當時一切嘅情況係未安排好。
First, I did not want to compete with my brother for the same job, same position.
咁首先我唔希望同我嘅弟弟係爭同一份嘅工作。
I would rather die and not doing that.
我寧願死都唔會係咁做，都唔會唔
And
想係咁做。
secondly, I honestly want the church to look for another pastor.
咁第二就話我好誠懇咁樣希望呢個教會係揾到另外一個牧師。
I felt the church need a new face, a new direction.
我感覺到教會係需要一個新嘅面孔、新嘅方向。
Thirdly, I did say that, and I have it on record too. I have written it out, and I still have it on file. That I told the church in my last sermon that I promised church I will leave the church for 5 years, even if I may move back from Vancouver.
咁第三就話我其實已經係備咗檔案，係傳咗檔案，就話喺即使我搬翻嚟唔離開都好，我決定咗係會離開呢教會至少5年。
I must respect my word. I must honor my word.
我需要對我所講嘅説話負上責任。
So like Moses, I declined because things did not line up.
就因為呢個緣故，我好似摩西咁樣婉拒咗，係因為呢個嘅情況，呢個嘅事實係未安排得好。
But make no mistake about Moses.
但係唔好諗錯咗。
When he said no to God, it doesn't mean he has no more desire.
當摩西婉拒咗神嘅時候，唔代表佢係冇咗呢個渴望。
The problem is this because at that time for 40 years, this whole thing of going back to save Israel was in his mind, very, very heavy in his heart.
咁因為呢40年嘅裏邊翻去救呢以色列人，喺佢係個心裏邊係變咗一個好沉重嘅一件事。
But he have come to this conclusion that humanly speaking is impossible to lead Israel out of Egypt.
佢亦都同時係點樣到去救呢以色列人出呢埃及係人力所不能及嘅。
Why? Because they are unorganized.
點解？因為佢哋係冇組織，
They are minority.
佢係一個少數嘅一個
They
少
are
數
being
嘅民族。
outnumbered and outgunned by the mighty Egyptian army.
呢個嘅呢個埃及人佢哋嘅軍隊係數量係多過佢哋亦都係冇佢哋呢個咁樣嘅武器。
Even if they manage to run away en masse, the Egyptian will catch up on them before they even reach the Red Sea.
即使佢哋係一大堆人走都好，佢哋未到紅海已經係俾呢個嘅埃及嘅兵係追到啦。
It takes a miracle to escape from Egypt.
去離開埃及係需要一個嘅神蹟。
But miracle is something that he doesn't have because he's no God. He's not a God.
但係神蹟係摩西可做唔到嘅，因為佢唔係神。
So he knows that when God called him to go back and save them, he said, I'm not equal to the task.
所以當神係召佢指明佢去翻去埃及嘅時候，佢知道佢自己係冇呢個能力。
What he did not see is this missing puzzle of the miracle that I mentioned just now.
佢所見唔到嘅，當時見唔到就話我之前所講過呢啲咁嘅神蹟。
When God showed him that he equips him with miracle, and suddenly Moses found the missing piece, that everything is complete, everything lines up.
但係當神俾佢見到佢會係裝備佢做呢個神蹟嘅時候，佢就係揾到呢個嘅砌圖嘅缺少嘅一
He
塊。
went full steam ahead and never looked back.
佢就係全力咁樣前進，再唔望翻轉頭啦。
So this is an important lesson we need to learn today.
今日我哋所學嘅係呢個好重要嘅功課。
God did not put Moses into a compost bin to have him rot for 40 years.
神係冇將摩西擺喺呢個堆肥嘅桑個裏邊，係讓佢係呢40年裏面係腐化。
Rather, God preserved him by putting him in the cellar like making wine.
而神就好反而係神係將佢擺喺呢個地牢裏邊，好似啲酒咁樣。
The longer he's in storage and he's being brewed and become better and better, like a vintage wine.
咁佢喺呢個嘅地牢越耐嘅時間，佢係好似酒咁樣變得越純成為呢個佳釀。
He become more seasoned leader, strong leader.
佢成為一個更加有呢個經驗、更加剛強嘅呢個領袖。
We need to know the isolation and the seclusion did not reduce him to nothingness, but in fact prepare him for this extraordinary task of saving Israel.
佢呢個經歷咗呢個嘅隔離同埋呢個嘅隱藏，唔係將佢係變為一無是處嘅人，反而係將佢準備好去接受呢個非凡嘅任務。
Like the soldiers, like you ask Calvin, with the soldier living in a barrack and not being able to go and do what they are trained to do.
就好似一啲嘅士兵一樣，佢哋活喺佢呢個兵營嘅裏邊，唔能夠出去做佢哋受訓練要做嘅事情。
But they are being trained and they are storing up the energy to prepare for one day they are being called upon to fight and win a battle.
佢哋係被受呢個訓練，係養精出嚟，準備有一日佢哋要出嚟係打呢個仗。
So today, let us apply this lesson to our lives.
到今日，讓我哋係將呢個嘅學到嘅功課應用喺我哋自己身上邊。
After this deep freeze,
喺呢個被冷藏期間完咗嘅時候
what do you want this long layoff accomplished in your life at the end when you are being thawed out?
咁係當你解凍嘅時候，你希望見到呢個呢個漫長隔離係對你有產生咗乜嘢嘅演變或者係
What is the best possible outcome after you are being put in storage for a year, over a year?
當你被冷藏咗1年之後，最好嘅你演變係乜嘢呢？
I'm sure all of us, like Moses, have our own share of broken dream and setbacks and disappointments.
我相信大家好似摩西一樣，有我哋有你嘅破碎咗夢，有我哋挫折嘅地方。
There were things that you were aspired to do, but you were denied because of circumstance, not necessarily COVID, but prior to that.
咁或者呢啲事情你係曾經有呢個志向去做嘅，但係因為個環境嘅緣故，唔單止係呢個疫情咧，就係令到你係做唔到。
With God's help, I want you to think about this. It's time to regroup. It's time to plan for a breakthrough.
咁我希望係思想一下話求神你幫助你。而家係一個我哋重新組織、重新計劃嘅時候。
Many people have found this secret already.
就希望我哋可以得到呢個突破。好多人已經揾到呢個秘訣。
During this confinement, even non-Christians rediscover about themselves without the help of God.
咁喺當我哋困喺呢個屋企嘅時間個裏邊，雖然係冇神嘅幫助，佢已經係揾翻佢自己。
Cooking, baking, music, art, renovation, music recording.
咁就係話係煮嘢食啊，係焗嘢啊，係玩音樂啊、藝術啊，係裝修啊，或者係好多其他嘢。
Even things that they did not want to do, lazy to do now, garden center, last year garden center ran out of the supply. I went there, nothing left.
咁係就算係以前係好難去做嘅事情都好，好似一啲嘅員工嘅花園工作嘅應用品咧，係已經係被人係受興咗啦。
If they didn't do all this, what I said, at least the lockdown brought people closer because they didn't have time for one another before. Now they do.
即使係你冇做我任何之前頭先所講嘅都好，但係呢一段嘅係呢個嘅禁令嘅期間，係讓人與人之間嘅距離係接近咗。
If non-Christians discover about themselves and their ambition and the aspiration, how much more should Christians take advantage of that?
咁係若然一啲係非基督徒都可以係尋求揾翻佢自己，同埋揾緊佢嘅雄心同埋佢壯志嘅時候，我哋作為基督徒更加係應該有利用呢段時間。
I want you to know this is the precious time to relaunch ourselves and to explore our fullest potential.
咁相信呢個時間裏邊，我係再開始係可以重新出發，係再一次係去揾翻我哋自己。
Let me draw my conclusion.
或者係我而家嚟到呢個結論。
Our isolation is not meant to harm us, rob us, or destroy us.
呢個隔離嘅時間唔係話要去傷害我哋，去剝削我哋或者去毀滅我哋。
We have to see this is God's training camp, just like what He have trained Moses or what the army have gone through. We are going through a training camp, and God is our coach.
我哋需要係見到呢個係呢個神嘅訓練營，而神就係我哋嘅教練，就好似佢對摩西一樣。
We need to cultivate inside our heart the desire to get back onto the saddle.
我哋需要係培養我哋裏邊呢個嘅渴望，係祈求係再一次係出發。
We need to reacquaint ourselves of how to get back onto the driver's seat and start driving.
我哋需要係有呢個嘅渴求，希望係坐喺呢個司機嘅位嘅上邊。
And since we haven't seen our people for such a long time, we need to cultivate our desire and motivation to serve them and also to serve God.
咁因為我哋冇見到我哋教會人咁耐，我希望我哋更加係栽培我哋更加想服侍啲人嘅心，同埋服侍神嘅心。
We need to tell God, tell the Holy Spirit, God, stoke the fire inside me.
我需要對呢個神對呢個聖靈講話，係將我心裏邊嘅火係煽起。
I want my life to be on fire after all this.
我希望我個心係火熱嘅。
And more power and more love from you.
係從裏邊更加多能力，更加多嘅愛。
Since I have more time to spend with you, make your presence known to me in my life.
因為我有更加多嘅時間係花同你一齊嘅時候，讓你嘅真實喺我生命裏邊係更加嘅顯著。
Since I have quiet down already, speak to me, talk to me in dream, talk to me in vision.
因為我已經安靜你嘅緣故，對我講説話，對我俾我有異象，俾我有異夢。
Lead me to the rock which is higher than us.
帶領到去呢個俾我哋更加高嘅磐石嘅裏邊。
I hope this long layoff creates a positive effect on you and on me.
我希望喺呢個漫長嘅隔離嘅時間裏邊，係喺我嘅當中，你同我身上邊都係有呢個好嘅演化。
I hope your starvation here creates a deep longing and a desire to make up the loose ground.
我希望喺呢段時間裏邊，我哋可以急起直追，係追翻我哋嘅呢個路程。
So when our Premier Lago tell you now you can resume, we can pick up the pieces in your own life, and you are so ready to dash out of the starting block.
咁係當我哋呢個省長佢話我已經係將呢個消除咗呢個禁令啦，我哋可以重新開始啦。咁我哋已經準備裝備得好，係急不待
Because you have stored up all this energy.
係急不及待咁樣，因為已經係充夠電啦。
Because this energy is there and ready to erupt.
因為你呢個嘅精力已經係充沛，係準備係爆發出嚟。
We must ask God to renew our calling.
我希望神係更新我哋嘅呼召。
To show us what we can do better in everything.
係俾我哋見到係事情裏邊點樣可以做到更加嘅好。
And we also need to ask God to help us this time that we can walk on water and we can move mountain because now we have the energy to do that.
咁因為呢段時間裏邊，而家祈求神，我哋可以行喺個水上邊，同埋係將個山係拿開，因為有一日更多嘅時間去親近佢。